What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Bankroll Blitz. As many of you guys know, Prop Holiday is getting married this weekend. So to let him have his time off and focus on his future bride and enjoy himself, we invited a very special guest, Miles Markiewicz from Pickswise and What's the Spread. How are you doing today, Miles?
My man, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Dude, I'm glad you stepped in and are ready to tackle these games with us. It's going to be a shorter episode. So I only have 2 plays. Miles only has 2 plays. So just make sure you stick tuned to the entire episode. We are going to still put together our guest segment of our touchdown parlay, but that is going to come on Friday. So I'll get things started with my first play. In true Bankroll Blitz fashion, I'm going to go with my 2-team teaser, Rams -3 and Chiefs -0.5. The reason I'm back in the Rams here, let's be for real. The New York Giants are just riddled with injuries. Daniel Jones is still in concussion protocol. Even if he does play, he's been practicing in a limited capacity. No Saquon with that sprained ankle. This Giants team is only averaging 13 points per game. The Rams defense, although it's not as good as it was last year, they're still only allowing 20 points per game. And I think that they'll get to this limited, weak Giants team. So I really like that first leg. The second leg of the parlay, of the teaser, I'm going to go with the Chiefs. Listen, I backed the Chiefs, and I also faded the Chiefs last week. But it's Mahomes versus Heineke. It's going to be sketchy. Like, I wouldn't take the full 7 because Washington football team is going to be honoring Sean Taylor and finally retiring their jersey. But much like the Las Vegas Raiders, they have a lot of turmoil going there, and I'll gladly fade turmoil. You saw when the Raiders took on the Bears. The Bears just mollywopped them. So I'm going to go ahead and lock this teaser in. Do you have any thoughts on this play?
I mean, listen, the Chiefs are just in desperate need of a win right now. Just desperate win mode. And you and I a couple weeks ago were talking to Jared Smith about, teasers in the NFL and how much value you can find in these lines. So I'm loving getting the points here. You just need the Chiefs to get the win, which they desperately need. And I really think that they're going to come away with. And then you're getting a really favorable line with Rams -3 there as well. So I'm all about it.
Awesome. Cool. What's your first play of the weekend?
All right. I was really excited about this one when I was looking some things over. All right. And let me tell you about Justin Fields for a second. I'm a Buckeye. All right. First and foremost, Justin Fields is my boy. But I'm liking it this week for the over 12.5 rushing yards. I really haven't looked at his rushing yards props since he became the starter. But I started looking this week. And here are my thoughts so far on what I'm seeing from Fields. First of all, I really think he's going to start settling into this starter role. You already see it in his press conferences, right? Where they were talking to him about this Bears-Packers rivalry. We see where his mindset is at. This guy's ready to take the team over. Now, he hasn't hit the 12.5 rushing yards since he's been the starter. He did. I think he got to 30 at one point this season when he was switching in and out. But, I mean, as a starting quarterback, he's only hit, 12 yards, 9 yards, 4 yards. I think this is the week, though. If you look at what the Packers have allowed, Jameis Winston, 37 yards in the first week. Jared Goff ended up with 46 rushing yards. I think this is a really good spot for him to make a few more plays on his own. I'm seeing that right now he's a little tentative to make his own plays. This is what he did at Ohio State, though. He was never afraid to take the ball for a first down. He was never afraid to take that running lane. I think that this is going to be an opportunity, especially in a game against the Packers, where I feel like a team like the Bears will have trouble just staying in it, right? I mean, even from what we've seen from the Packers. So I just think it's a really good opportunity for him to show what he can do with his legs. I'm liking the 12.5. I'm looking to get at least 16 or 17, maybe 18 rushing yards from Fields this week.
Hey, I like it. I was, kind of interested in this game because who doesn't like Bears-Packers? And Justin Fields is going to have to beat them with his legs.
He's going to have to.
He's a quarterback
to move the chains.
Yeah, that makes him effective. I'm going to go ahead with my next play and a study that I've been doing for a couple weeks now called operationfade, where I look at the top 5 biggest public plays. And surprise, on that list was the Los Angeles Chargers at 87%. Woo. What a high number. Listen, there's every reason that you want to go ahead and back the Chargers. The offensive line is much improved. Staley's probably everyone's favorite coach now. Mike Williams is probably going to torch Anthony Everett unless they put Humphreys on him, which then if they have Humphreys on Mike Williams, then you're going to have Keenan Allen playing. I don't care. The X factor of this game is Lamar Jackson. I was listening to someone, I think it was Keyshawn Johnson. He said, Lamar's playing at that level where all the receivers have to do is catch the ball. Like, he's putting the ball in pockets that makes it almost impossible for them not to be effective. The defense has struggled. Yes, sure. They're coming off a short week. Yes, sure. But let's not forget, the Chargers are flying all the way across country. Now, I would be more excited to back the Chargers if it was Baltimore on a short week who had to travel to LA. You know, everyone knows that time difference from coming West Coast to East Coast is a bear for a lot of people. But I also saw something that was pretty cool where Lamar Jackson has an opportunity to throw for 5,000 yards and rush for 1,000 yards, which has never been done in the NFL. So I'm going to go ahead and back the Baltimore Ravens with this one.
Yeah, and I was going to mention that West to East Coast thing because I think it definitely is something to consider. And the Ravens at this point, they're just finding ways to win ball games, right? I mean,
yes.
that's really what I'm seeing out of them this season. I'm liking what I'm seeing out of Lamar Jackson. They were talking the other night about the growth that they're seeing out of Lamar Jackson in the quarterback position. How hard he is on himself when he misses a throw. We saw a couple of those. We've talked a lot about Lamar on what's the spread over the years, and I really am starting to see that leadership role take over for him, where he's just finding ways to win the ball game.
Yes.
And in a spot like this, when you got the Chargers traveling across the country, as you said, 87% of the money on LA. Don't be surprised if the Ravens find a way to win that game.
Yeah, we have to be for real. Like, the freaking Browns ran up the score on them. They didn't pull out the win, but I mean, I'm very excited for this. It was a play that I probably wouldn't even looked at the Ravens. If I wasn't doing Operation Fade, I probably would have just automatically taken the Chargers because it just sounds so good. But the NFL is just the public hasn't been losing a lot this year so far, but we know Vegas is going to get it right. Go ahead and lay your next play on us, Miles.
So I wanted to do an over-under this week. I'm not a huge fan of over-unders. I'm especially not a fan of unders, but I was starting to think about the Bengals, and I was starting to think about the Bengals-Lions, all right? And the trends speak for themselves here, all right? I'm going to take the under in the Bengals-Lions game, under 47.5. First of all, Detroit, their last 4 games, the under is 4-0. You got to look at the combined point totals for their last 3, 36, 38, and 36. Somehow this 0-5 Lions team looks a lot better on the field than they do with their record. So even in a game like this where, you could argue and it's objectively, the Bengals are playing much better football. Dating back to last year, the Bengals unders are hitting 5 of their last 6 games. And what I've seen with the Bengals, I mentioned this last week where they did a lot better job last week of not having a slow start against Green Bay. But again, it's something that we've seen with Cincinnati. And I think that this is a spot where it could definitely be a little bit of a hangover from that crazy loss that they had to the Packers, which with all those missed field goals, they had every opportunity to win the game. So this is a non-divisional game. So I look for those spots where there's a little bit of a letdown. I think Cincinnati is the better team, but I just don't think there's going to be enough on either side. Just the trends speak for themselves. What Detroit is doing, those combined point totals under 40 in their last 3 games. I see this going exactly the same.
It's interesting. The Bengals were a candidate for Operation Fade. And I'm glad that you put the under here because typically when, teams are like Detroit who are looking for their first win and the public is just drastically fading them, what happens is they play really tough and they play really tight.
Sure.
And I think that an under is a great play. When you see a number like a 47.5, it already suggests that it's going to be really low scoring. I think what was the last one that we had last weekend was 46.5. And that was the Eagles and the Panthers. And everyone thought that was going to be a shootout. But when Vegas sets lines like that, it's like those are one of those totals that you kind of have to pay attention to. And for those who are wondering, that game did go under.
Yeah, and you can see it in the press conferences too for the Lions after their loss, how badly they just want a win, and they're going to find every way. How they're staying in games right now is keeping them low scoring, keeping those offenses in check, and just finding ways to stay in the game. And I just think this is a perfect spot for them to do exactly the same thing and keep that going. Now, I think they'll be 0-6. I mean, I think that my Bengals come away with the victory here, but I'm taking that under.
Well, Miles, thank you for joining Bankroll Blitz. And everyone, I know that this is a football podcast, but I just want to give a shout out to my Orlando Magic who are starting the season with a fresh slate. The NBA season starting soon. Hockey season started. So if you want to follow me on Twitter and see any of my football, NHL, basketball plays, even soccer and golf, follow me at Mr. Brad Thomas. If If you want to follow Miles Markiewicz, go ahead. It's Miles on Sports, where he covers football and gives great analysis. Be sure to follow Bankroll Blitz at Bankroll Blitz with a Z. Wonderful having you on, Miles. Thank you so much.
Thank you, my friend.
Have a great one, guys.